What makes for a good mix? This is a question on every engineer's mind when they go for the first equalizer, first compressor, first reverb, whatever. Just moving the fader knobs. Well, this is my opinion. Everybody varies on this, but I think most of this is pretty universal. First of all, I want to hear every single word and every single note on every instrument in the mix. If any of those notes are obscured by the other tracks, the mix is not good enough. And the way you get to that point is with compression, with automation, and by putting the tracks in different spaces. That's the second part. A good mix has a nice stereo spectrum. Most people are listening with two channels. So you have two speakers to work with, and really that's a good amount of space for everything to blend together. So you use your pan knobs, you use reverb, you use delay, and that helps everything blend together better. Number 3, and this goes along with stereo, mono compatibility. This is why I've said before, mix in mono first, because it really helps with other aspects of the mix. And when you go to put everything in stereo, it's just done, pretty much. You know, the stereo mix is easier if the mono mix sounds good. And yeah, people still do listen with one speaker. You know, when things go bad with stereo on FM radio, it gets collapsed down to mono. Some people have TVs with one speaker. Laptops, some of the older ones might have one speaker. There's tons and tons of places where your mix may be smashed down to mono. So you need to make sure everything still sounds good in mono. You're going to have problems with the mix, but you shouldn't have your vocal, for example, completely disappear when it gets collapsed down to mono. So ensuring mono compatibility is huge. Number 4, if I'm doing my numbers right, frequency balance. A lot of people like to have the bass really loud, and you know, that's not always the way to handle things. You really need to be careful with how loud your bass is, how loud your higher frequencies are, and your mid-range especially. I mean, everything needs to be sympathetic? I don't know. I'm trying to use a word I don't know. Everything needs to be in balance, really. And what really helps me is by mixing with reference mixes. So if I'm mixing metal, I will listen to Lamb of God. I'll listen to Avenged Sevenfold. You know, anything that I think sounds good. Slipknot, their 2008 CD, which I can't remember the name right now, but that album sounds absolutely incredible. It sounds good everywhere I listen to it, and anytime I'm mixing metal, I use that album as a reference. If you're mixing classical music, use classical. You know, really good mixes for that. Rap, same way. I just mixed a rap song last month, and I used The Chronic 2000 by Dr. Dre. That's my reference CD for that. So it's all about frequency balancing. All the notes, all the lyrics are heard clear. You want to have dynamics in your mix. This is something that I struggled with. Now, this really goes back to arrangement, but your mix needs to have some sort of dynamics to keep the listener engaged. And whether that be dropping out instruments that were already recorded and only adding them back in the chorus, or only adding them back for the very end of the song, you need to have your mix doing something. And with everybody having ADHD nowadays, you need to be doing a lot more in a smaller time frame. So, like, if you watched my arrangement analysis of the Taylor Swift song, I can't think of the name of it right now, but it's the video I released a few videos ago. And oh, I knew you were trouble. That song changes like every 8 measures. So dynamics, if if you want to have something be the same throughout your song, be my guest. But if you're going for a professional mix, which I would say most of us are going for, then you need to have dynamics in the music, and it's either added during arrangement or it's added while you're actually mixing. I think that's about it. I mean, really, that covers all my bases. I like to have the song sound like the band is in the room with me, but not have a lot of reverb. You know, like if I go to see a live performance, I'm hearing most of the band, and I'm not hearing a lot of room reverb, which you hear a lot in amateur sounding mixes, because maybe the room they actually recorded in didn't sound great, or they didn't close mic. And there's tricks you can do to get around that, but really your mix, unfortunately, a lot of times is dependent on the quality of the original recordings. So that's why I always say spend a lot of time. If you're doing this by yourself, spend most of your time taking care of getting what you hear during tracking right. Because if you don't take the time, if you're lazy about it, if you're in a rush about it, you're gonna fuck your mix up. There's just no way to get a good sounding mix if your original recordings sound like ass. And that's the truth. I'm sorry if I come off abrasive that way, but it's the truth. And I've had people send me recordings and I will refuse to mix them. I'll turn down money because I'm telling these people their song will not sound good. There's nothing I can do about it. You can only polish a turd so much. It's going to be a turd. Maybe a better looking turd, but a turd nonetheless. So anyway, that's my feeling on what makes for a good mix. What do you think is good in a mix? What makes a mix to you? Leave your comment below. If you like this video, hit like. If you don't, hit the thumbs down button. This has been Adam for RealHomeRecording.com.